Hi, this is Duff, WA7BFN, and welcome to This is LICW. A look at what's new, noteworthy, and happening in the Long Island CW Club for October 2024. The Long Island CW Club has a cadre of very talented instructors, former students who have moved on to teaching UCW. One of those instructors is G4OAB, Malc, who hails from the UK, and teaches an Intermediate 2 class. Well, what is Intermediate 2?
Well, Intermediate 2 is 12 to 16 words per minute. We do tend to go a little bit above that. And we go a little bit down towards the slow side as well to cater for everybody. It's a case of trying to cater for everybody. A lot of the lower lads, the lower speed lads, will say, "Oh, don't slow down for me." But that's not the point. The class is to incorporate everybody. Great. So that's what I try to do.
Yeah, great. What inspired you to teach Morse code? What happened? How did you start out teaching?
Well, last year, Mike asked me would I consider teaching, and at that time I wasn't really in a position to do so. I've got young grandchildren, so they take up quite a bit of my time, and plus we only had one card in the family, and the wife was running back into to cater for the grandchildren.
Right.
Then again this year. We managed to get another car, and then Quinton inquired whether I'd consider it again. So I did do. Yeah, I thought, well, yeah, I don't mind having a go, and I'll.
Sure. Yeah.
And hopefully, it'll turn out well. I was very, very petrified on the very first evening that I took my first class, but it worked out quite well. I mean, once I'd had 3 or 4 classes, it was very good.
Yep. Do you have a specific method or some methodology that you use basically in presenting the class as it goes along?
Yeah, it all depends. It's about time management, Duff.
Okay.
It all depends on how many's in the class, and the more number of classes that you do, the better you've got at time management. So if there's relatively few, maybe half a dozen, I will start with a warm-up of some description. I've sent passages from the Charge of the Light Brigade and down to kids' jokes and stuff like that, which the lads seem to enjoy. I've got quite a number of regular lads, and they seem to quite enjoy that. And then we'll move on to a main exercise where they are sending and receiving whatever it is that, whatever the exercise is for that week. And then usually around about 10 to 9 in the evening, which is what it is here, it's 8 till 9 in the evening, I will finish off with head copy, and that's usually 17 to 20 words per minute. Yep. And that's sending a variety of words or prefixes and suffixes.
Yeah. It's been great. LICW has just absolutely been fantastic over the years, and we've progressed so much in the various classes. Have you had any specific success stories out of your class at all?
Well, yeah, there's 1 or 2 lads that really, really should have been standing up to the next level, and they just seem very, very reluctant to do so. It may be that they haven't got time in their day to do that. But they certainly should be getting there. They started off reasonably slowly, but then suddenly they took off, and you'll always get a number in the class that do that.
Sure.
Which is brilliant. And as regards to your comments about LICW, I mean, yeah, I joined about 2 years ago, I think it is now. And the club from 2 years ago to what it is now is just absolutely, magnificently changed. Yeah, and for the better and for the good, without a doubt.
Yeah. How did you learn Morse code? How would you start out?
I used to have a little reel-to-reel tape, and at bagging times, break times, what we used to call bagging time at work, and dinner times, I would put my little tape on and teach myself the ABCs of Morse code. And that's how I started. And that would have been about 1967, I think, probably 68. I did that for a long, long time. And then in 1979, when I managed to pass the test. I went to Riversdale Technical College for 12 months,
Oh, okay.
which is Riversdale Tech in Liverpool. Well, it was Aigburth in Liverpool, and they taught ships radio officers well, they died out eventually, but they taught ships radio officers. So they ran a course down there, and I went down there, and I was licensed in 1979 as G8XTA. That was a B license. And then 2 years later, I went down to the Anglesey radio station, Coast Guard station, and passed my 12 words a minute for 5 minutes, sending and receiving, and I passed there, and then I obtained my G4OAB, my A-class license.
Oh, great. All right.
And then I used Morse for quite a number of years until family arrived on the scene.
As it always happens, right? I can imagine that. Is there one particular item in your class that you'd like to instill? What do you figure is the best thing, basically in teaching your class?
Well, from teaching point of view, I just thoroughly enjoy it. I didn't think I would, but I thoroughly enjoy it. And I've got quite a number of regular lads that come into the class, and we just have fun. We really do have fun. And every week there'll be one or two new faces. And I think from my point of view, you can swap and chop about with your teaching.
Sure.
But I sort of tend to, to a degree, I'll tend to sort of stick to a certain format. And I've had one or two comments that, we like coming into your class because of this and because of that. So I stick to what I know best at the moment, Duff.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I think what I've noticed, through all of LICW for the few years that we've been here is the fact that most of the instructors in there love to teach. They just have this thing about them. And they just want to do that and get engaged into it. And I think that really makes the difference, basically, in the classes themselves. Quality people such as yourself over there wanting, basically, to see these people succeed and move on, I guess, within the program itself.
Yeah, I would totally agree with you, mate. I mean, we're doing it as a voluntary thing. It's not a job.
Of course.
And when you think about it, you've got to sort the lessons out, and we're doing it every week. I mean, sometimes there's a break in the summer, but this year I went straight through. I mean, it's surprising how the Wednesdays come round. You finish one class and you think, oh, it's over and done with, I've got a break now, but wow, there's the weekend and you're looking to sort the next lesson out for the next Wednesday.
Exactly.
But it's good fun. It's good fun.
That's a lot of fun. Malc, thank you so much for chatting with us today over there, and good luck with the classes. Always a pleasure, sir.
Thanks, Duff. You're very welcome.
You bet. You can catch Malc's Intermediate 2 class on Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Time in Zoom C. All right, AE6VL Roland of California, as of late, is an accomplished pilot, a certified flight instructor, and he heads up our Intermediate 2 section of the LICW classes. As a Welshman and a resident, we lovingly call weirdo, he brings to us a lot of color to the classes. So, anyway, Roland, how did you learn Morse code? How did that go?
Oh, that was a complicated, agonizing process. I first started dabbling with Morse code as a teenager. There was no mentor, no instructor. This was all about sort of trying to figure out, I couldn't even tell you how it sounded. And then I was able to get a hold of some pre-recorded vinyl records. I think there were 3 of them. I don't remember the detail. I do remember they cost me almost £5, which at the time was an arm and a leg for me. And if nothing else, at least they gave me a feel for what Morse ought to sound like. I mean, the game was you played them at, I guess it was 33, then at 45, and then at 78. The little record player was my brother's record player, which was, to say the least, not the most stable of appliances. And I got a smattering of it, but one of the difficulties was, when you're a teenager, you've only got to hear a song once and you know all the lyrics. So the first thing that happened was I found I simply memorized what was being sent. and didn't recognize what was being sent. I just knew what was being sent. And so these things became useless probably within 10 days, 2 weeks. It was like, no, I've memorized all the content. And it's like, oh, this is awful. So I just basically sold them.
Right.
And then, I knew about ham radio. I was a subscriber to Practical Wireless. And, I read things like Practical Television and Wireless World and what were the sort of the staple diet of the British press. And then I wandered off to college in the fall of 1971. And the first thing I did was dig out the local technical college and put in a reservation to sit my City and Guilds examination, which was, they called it the RAE, the Radio Amateurs Examination.
Right.
And this was an essay-style paper where you wrote everything out and, you got the results in the mail, just before Christmas. And then it was like, oh, right, so I can qualify for my B license at this point. So now I got to figure out how to learn enough Morse code. So the club, GW3 UCB, which was University College Bangor, was all the rage. And there were a couple of really kind guys there that really were useful. They were willing to tutor you. And they did. They just spent a lot of time sending me text. It was up to me to learn the letters, but they would just sit there, over a lunchtime, and they would just send me 30 minutes of text, and then the next lunchtime, and then the next lunchtime.
Right.
And then we went off on contests. And slowly but surely, this information accreted until towards the end of May. Now, I say the end of May, but I don't actually have a strong memory of when it was. I know where it was. One of the guys, at the time, he was G3WKH, Robbie Martin, and Robbie lives up in Seattle now, and he's got a 7 call, which he changed from his original AE call, because the E got lost in the noise and became an R with the A. He got a custom call maybe about 6-8 years ago. And I spoke with him not long after he got the call, but he basically put me in his Mini, drove me up to Anglesey Radio, and the coastal radio station administered the test. And the guy sat there, interestingly enough, with the original, what is a PB213 to me, but was the original post office key. And he basically pounded out a whole bunch of text.
Sure.
And the only thing I really remember was him hovering over my shoulder, pointing at this long word that I had not exactly copied. And he said, oh, for God's sake, he said, you've got to be able to guess at some of these letters. And I said, well, it's about cable. Oh, I said, it's submarine. And he said, right. He said, that's it. He said, I need one more letter and you've passed the test.
I'll be darned.
And I'm now frantically looking, and I can't remember what the word was, but it was like, oh, no, that's obviously, now that I know it's about submarine cables, the rest is obvious. And then he said, right, let's do the numbers. And he pounded out this sort of what seemed like an infinite sequence of numbers. And then he gave me a piece of text, and he said, send me this. So I sat there and pounded it back, and then he gave me a list of numbers, send these, blah, blah, blah. And he said, right, he said, you are now approved as a 12 words a minute operator. He said, get out there, get on the air, get going at it. You can do this.
Yeah, it's fun.
And so I was stunned. So that was my Morse code journey, all squeezed into a few weeks, few months really.
There we go.
Nothing like the quality of instruction you get with the LICW system.
Right.
I mean, to say the least, that is staggeringly impressive.
So you're heading up basically Intermediate 2. What is covered in Intermediate 2 in the LICW classes?
Well, the goal of Intermediate 2 is to try and take people that are, in theory, capable at 12 words a minute, and quite often they're not quite there, and then squeeze them gently up to 16 words a minute. It's not really that gentle, because I think the longer you spend drifting up to your target, the harder it actually is. So for me, I try and focus on really well sent code. I use a straight key for the stuff that I do. And the other guys, it's a mix. Some guys use a paddle. I don't mind paddles, but they don't give you the fist quality
Right.
that you get from a
Yeah.
straight key.
Exactly.
So, and then it's a question of how do you teach this? And some guys do it with short exchanges. Other guys do it just by sending, single words or mixing words. My preferred style, and this has evolved really out of the NV1U exercises, where I try and find relatively short little pieces of text. And then I send people 2 lines at a time so that each person gets to send quite a lot.
Sure.
If there are 6 people in the class,
Right.
they're going to get about 12% of the time allocated to their sending.
Yeah.
And that mixes it up a bit for people. So they've got a story they can follow. They've got the opportunity to send their 2 lines, their 2 penneth, as it were. And then everybody gets a chance to copy everybody else.
Yeah, sure.
So, it's a nice go around.
Yeah.
It works really well.
Yeah. Do you have any particular success stories, basically, out of your classes?
Oh, I mean, I don't know if it's a success story or an unsuccess story. and this is the hard part for me. I find that the class tends to be a bit on the sticky side, and I don't mind it being sticky. I mean, at least it tells me they enjoy the class. But people's sending and receiving comes on at a staggering rate. I mean, typically somebody new to the group in, I don't know, 4 classes, they're sending way better than they were.
Yeah.
So there's big steps in capability. And then when I try and hint that they should move up to intermediate 3 or drop in on NV1U,
Right.
and I've got a few people into NV1U, and it's I mean, that's good, but they still want to hang around, and I guess they enjoy the class, they like the content, but for their own progress, how do you tell someone to push off and go and do something harder? I do try, and I will say, come on, let's do a couple of quick words the way that Quentin does in NV1U, or did.
Yeah.
So we'll do 20 to 25 words a minute, single words, and I try and pick things which have got 2, maybe 3 syllables.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't send the word pediatrician, for example, but I might send pedal or bicycle.
Yeah. I know you bring a lot of color, of course, with your background, of course, to the classes itself. What would you consider probably the most important skill, I guess, for a Morse code student? What do you think that would be?
Oh, the ability to let it go.
Ah.
I mean, the thing that everybody hangs up on is they miss something, and then it's back to primary school days where if you missed something, you didn't get the gold star, and you got humiliated for being the class dunce. And I mean, we don't do that, but people still hang on and wrestle with, there were 1, 2, 3 dits in that. Was that a B or was that an S or could it have been an H? And you gotta let it go, guys. And I gotta say, that's a hard skill to master. I know that.
Yeah. And we've learned that. Yeah, we learned that through NV1U, and it's amazing where that has gone. And it's just amazing how fast, basically you can achieve those, those goals that you're looking for, which is totally amazing. Well, it's an absolute fun time for Intermediate 2. Thank you, Roland. I appreciate that. And your classes are when again? What are you running?
My Int 2 class, I do the one Thursday at midday my time, which is 3 p.m. Eastern.
Okay.
And I'm embarrassed to say I don't infrequently run over because people get really into it and they want to do more.
Right.
So people do hang around for quite a long time after the class.
Well, you bring yourself and your color and your background and everything else is quite a credit, basically, to everybody's success. And we thank you very much for that, for sure. Roland, thank you.
It's nice of you to say, so thank you very much.
You betcha. Take care. Thank you, sir.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Duff.
Everything has a beginning, and Ron KC2PSA heads up our Basic Carousel program, the start of your CW journey and adventures. So basically, Ron, what is BC 1, 2, and 3?
They're stepping stones for our new students who are learning the code to go from learning the code from the very fresh beginning all the way towards getting on the air. In BC 1, we have you learn the first 18 characters in 6 weeks.
Oh,
and
okay.
We teach you 3 new characters every week, and you can go around and around to BC1 or 2 or 3 as much as you need to learn all of the characters. And if you miss one class, that's okay. You can attend the same class on a different day of the week, and they all teach the same letters. So you can miss the class on one day and then pick it up on another day if you like.
Okay. So BC2 then is what, a continuation of that?
That's right. In BC1, we teach about how to be able to learn the code.
Okay.
In BC2, we have more of a focus on not just hearing the code as single acoustic sounds, but also learning how to send rhythmically too.
And then BC3 covers what, the whole shebang?
In BC2, we teach the remaining 26 characters. So by the time you're through BC2, after 9 weeks, you'll have 44 characters total. And then in BC3, we help teach you get on the air by learning the QSO protocol that you would use to get on the air and communicate with people.
So like the POTA exchange and things of that nature, then you're going to kind of focus on at that point. But the curriculum has really developed over the last few years, of course, in LICW like that. Is there one particular thing that you focus on to basically get folks involved and get a success going for them?
Yeah, one thing we try to really focus on is getting people on the air, because we know that you can spend a long time learning the code, but we really would like to get you on the air. Even if it's a little bit rough and there's a lot of errors and mistakes, that's okay. Once you get on the air and you feel the accomplishment of making your first contact, that's a great motivation to keep studying and continue on with all of your practicing.
Absolutely. So I can imagine that basically by the time we hit 3, that they're comfortable at this point to do that. So I know the Code Buddy program basically gets you on the air with that. Do you have any online practicing, or you just kind of practice in Zoom, or what do you do basically in the sending course?
Very recently, we introduced a new lesson plans for all of our BC1 and BC2 classes, and these are called decompressed lesson plans.
Okay.
And what we did is we wanted to make more room so that the students can have more time in class to be able to send and practice their sending rhythm, their character element formation, and spacing as well. So we wanted to make sure we had more time for all of that. So we also have additional sending classes called Beginners Carousel Sending, scheduled multiple days of the week. But I want to highlight a few extra sending classes that are really great. If you're beginning to learn CW, check out our Sending Fundamentals class on Sunday afternoons Eastern Time. And our instructor, Tom, will help walk you through all the different fundamentals of ergonomics, how to set up your key, how to make sure that it's not too stiff and not too wide of a gap. And he'll help you get all through the sending fundamentals of how to send. But there's also another class right before that that's called the Good Fist Sending class, where a group of instructors will work with you to learn how to send code and give you feedback live right in class on how to send better.
Can you give us kind of an idea of how many times a week the BC Carousel goes on and where we are? Or is there specifics on that?
But we have classes throughout the week. Sometimes we have 2 or maybe 3 classes a day. But we have enough classes going throughout the week. So there is a BC1, BC2, and BC3 class every day of the week.
For the various instructors, you've got a class going for instructors at this particular point, or people or prospective instructors?
And I'm running 2 or maybe 3 training sessions a week for associate instructors. And that we've opened up to also instructors as well. So all of our instructors and all of our associate instructors can come in and get tips about how to use Zoom, the Morse practice page, and how to teach in class too.
Absolutely. So if you basically have a yen to teach, basically CW, that would be a good resource as well. Okay. And thank you very much. You have a good one.
Thank you, Duff. It's a pleasure. Take care.
You bet. In case you missed it, department for this month, we find Tom, W0FM, and we talked about ICR and IER. What the heck is that, Tom?
The central question that I asked was, can unique character sound familiarity levels be improved for students by only practicing at their acceptable current accuracy levels? How can a student get used to ICR character sounds at ICR speeds without listening to them? But how can they listen to them if they can't recognize them?
That's true. You're just going to be noise for that fact, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and that's what keeps people away from gaining experience or being able to gain any familiarity with unique single character sound per letter at the 25 to 30 word per minute character speed that enables hearing those unique sound rhythms, one per character. Because when you hear let's say C at da dit speeds, you don't hear a characteristic sound rhythm for that letter,
right?
Or any other letter for that matter. Yeah. But when you hear a da da dit, that's okay. Now, yeah, the dits and das are there, but there's a sound rhythm that's suddenly that now is apparent. And just generally speaking, for most unique single character sounds are brought out by, according to all the students that I've asked about this, and I love to ask questions, it's generally somewhere between 25 and 30 word per minute character speed for most. The issue has always been, if you only have a brief sliver / instant of time, to recognize letters, let's say, at, high speed, to anybody at 12 words per minute, 25 words per minute is an incomprehensible, speed. And that's the key. It's incomprehensible.
Right.
How can we add single and unique character sound recognition skills to students' existing DIT-DOS sequence recognition skills?
Right.
Leading with familiarity. Lead with familiarity building.
Okay, and that being the familiarity building of the sound is what you're approaching there?
The way I think that we can do this, and I think it'll work well because I've done it with prior classes in another organization, and that is to say a short common word, preferably a 2-letter word. Like B, like the word B.
Okay.
And say, okay, here's B at a quote unquote common ICR speed. You need to talk about how fast that is or what it is. Just it's a common ICR conversational Morse code speed.
Sure. And
then send BE at that speed, maybe 3 times at least. Talk about it a little bit. Did you hear sort of that sound rhythm of the BE? And then send it a couple more times and say, okay, now we're going to have some fun guessing at a new word based on BE by appending or adding just 1 letter to the end of that word. And so there's a very gradual addition of recognition, but it's not really talked about as a goal. I don't want it, at least I don't want it talked about as a goal. I want it talked about as, hey, let's have some fun guessing at what this new word might be.
And that's what it's all about. You bet.
Yeah, it's leading with recognition. Send bet, send beg, send bed, ask questions. What'd you hear? Did anybody? The more outrageous the guesses we get, the more fun we'll have.
Very good.
And so, in a subtle way, de-emphasize the onus, the burden, the stress of recognition accuracy, and bring forward the fun of guessing what this new word might be, but always at a character speed level that has them continually getting accustomed to and getting familiar with what letters sound like at a common ICR speed.
Yep. Which, as you say, is 25 to 30 then at that speed?
25 to 27, I think, is probably the good. That's my guess. That's my best guess is all.
Right.
At what a sending speed should always be around that area, at that 25 to 27 or slightly up. But make it a consistent speed. If I am an instructor for some of these classes at the intermediate level for, the official ICR class, it'll be a class of discovery. It'll be a class of fun. It'll lead with short, known words and appending one and then two letters like Ben, beat, beam. There's all kinds of two letters you can add to BE, for example. But there's lots of other short words on the top, the first 10, 20 of the top 100 most common English words.
So that instant character recognition turns into instant word recognition, and you hear the sound, and that is, I think, the key to what we're looking at for head copy and speed of comprehension, I would imagine.
Yeah, exactly. Well said by a very accomplished, CW op. You nailed it, and I think we all sort of agree that unique single sound to letter associations is the key to head copy or to ICR.
Right.
It's a listening thing. It's not a writing thing. You can just sit back and relax and listen and gain familiarity with these sounds. And they inevitably lead, and the first one that leads to this typically is the word sound of CQ, right?
Everybody knows that.
On a single sound rhythm for those two letters.
Exactly. And the same with 73, and the same thing. Some of the other protocol, that comes across that. Your QTH, for example, or things like that, or QSO. It's coming. Where it's there. And
especially if you're able to copy enough to know to follow the train of thought.
Right.
So you can anticipate that, what you're going to hear next. And it really, what you then hear is not only are you recognizing this character sounds or the word sound, you kind of knew what you were going to hear before you heard it.
Sure.
So recognition or anticipation is a big part of head copy.
Just while we're on that subject, what can a student do basically to maybe on his own increase this ICR? Is there a program out there or something you would suggest to do that?
I've been involved with Stephen Phillips, of course, in morsecode.world and adding features to his website, which he's been improving since the late 90s.
Sure.
He's not a CW op, remarkably, but the wordless trainer, as a part of the morsecode.world website, makes it easy to set a quote-unquote ICR speed. And then I'm planning on just creating some MP3 files that would be available to anyone and everyone, where a word is announced. This is what the word is you're going to hear. You're going to hear it at a common, quote-unquote, common ICR speed.
Right.
So that you can get familiar with those speeds and actually get the feeling of what being an ICR, a head copy operator, feels like without having the ability to recognize anything at that speed. But if you know what you're going to hear, then you're going to be able to recognize what you hear because you knew what you were going to hear, and the recognition challenge was removed.
Right. So and it's the sound. Once again, you correlate between the word and the sound, and that's what you're digging at, right?
Because if you're decoding the sequence of dits and das at speeds that require that, and when you're learning Morse code, that's required.
Sure. you might say.
That's how we learn it.
Yep.
And so, but there's another skill. A second skill doesn't replace dit and da sequence decoding, but it sort of moves dit and da sequence decoding to the rear, and it goes to the forefront when, and this is a generalization, but when character speeds get around the 18 to 20 words a minute, that generally is sort of the limit of having enough time to decode dit and da sequences, and you're sort of pushed into, you got to start moving towards recognizing characters by a single sound rhythm,
right?
And not focusing on what the dit and da sequence is to then figure out what the letter is.
Tom, thank you so much for yapping with us over here, and we'll look forward to more of the same from you in the near future, I'm sure. Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Tom.
Take care.
This is LICW is produced by the informational services of the Long Island CW Club. Comments, questions may be made to WA7BFN at MSN.com. Thanks, everybody. Till next time, 73s.